Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Behind the Reel. We are here for the ninth consecutive week in a row. Really excited to be able to say that. We definitely took a couple breaks, probably week-long, month-long breaks at one point, but we have been super consistent with this. Appreciate you guys for tuning in on it. Ninth week in a row, we have Brian Hillman on the show. He is a Missouri angler. He is here to talk about his most recent win, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, tournament, especially in the region here, the All American Kayak Classic. This is going to be the second annual event, and something special about this one, it was a 2-day event, and the first one was actually a 1-day. So definitely do want to dig into, kind of the ins and outs of what it takes to win a 2-day event, what his experiences might be with that, and just how he was able to pull away with that huge trophy, which I think he just might have in the background there for everybody to see. Definitely was a big one. If you guys are interested in checking those guys out, you can go over to Facebook, check out the All American Kayak Classic, and then also check out the Moyak group as well. They have a big hand in running that event and that regional series as well. So guys, if you are watching right now and you are interested in hearing some specific questions, if you want to shoot anything over to us mid podcast, just shoot that over in the live chat. We will be getting to those questions just as quick as we can. So guys, if you are here for the first time as well, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We're going to be here next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Really not sure who's going to be on the show yet, so we're going to be winging it for this next one. Shoot me some recommendations as well if you guys are interested in seeing somebody on next week's show. I've been fairly prepared for the upcoming weeks, but this week I am not. So that was a good recommendation. I don't even know if Casual Bass Guy meant to make a recommendation, but maybe we ought to have the Kansas Kayak Anglers guys on here to talk about that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Brian on, and we'll just get right on to it. What's up, Brian?
Hello, John.
Welcome to the show. Appreciate having you here.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Thanks.
You're just our neighbor to the east over there. Talk about, okay, so Jacob says he wants to talk about some squirrel hunting. I don't know if we can dedicate an hour and a half to squirrel hunting or not, but you got any expertise on the subject, Brian?
I haven't been squirrel hunting since I was a kid, whenever my dad and I used to go. Yeah.
You are a certified hog hunter, though, that is for sure.
Yeah. I hunt fish better these days than I do anything else. So
what did it end up taking to win? You were mid to high 80 average, or what was it to take that win, that 2-day event?
Well, the 2 days of fishing were completely different days, really. The fishing was a little bit, at least I thought it was, a little more difficult. Guys weren't bringing in real big bags. I ended up with 78 3/4 on the first day, and that put me in sixth place, only 3 inches out of the lead. So that just goes to show. I think there was only 2 guys that broke 80 inches, and they were like 81 something. So it was pretty tight up at the top, and not a lot of real big bags were brought in. That first day it started off real cold. I think whenever we launched, it was like 38 degrees, and ended up being bluebird skies, high sun. And then the second day, it was 15 degrees warmer in the morning, same time.
Wow.
And we had storms rolling in. So we had overcast skies all day long, and we had a lightning storm, thunderstorm that came through, that kind of held things up for a couple of hours. I actually spent about an hour just standing on the bank because there was so much lightning in the sky, and it was right above us. So I mean, it was pretty, it was real, So, but the rain did finally stop, but we had overcast skies the rest of the day. The wind laid down a little bit too, especially in the area that I was in. It was pretty protected, so I had some really flat, calm water for the most most of the day there. So two completely different days dealing with conditions. And I was prepared to fish, to fish differently both days if I had to. So I caught my fish. I mean, I'm sure some of you have already heard some, either read my write up or seen another podcast or something like that. But I'll kind of go back through it again. I was catching on chatterbaits on the first day. Here, let me turn that down. I was catching them on chatterbaits, 3 different colors the first day. And, I was just around bait fish, and I was just throwing the chatterbait around the bait fish, and I was catching a lot of fish. I caught probably 20 plus fish that day. And I don't think,
Wow.
And I think, and nothing was really big. I mean, they're all like 13, 14, 15 inches. And I did end up with an 18-incher, which was my kicker for that day. But, as the sun really got high, that chatterbait started to go away, and I picked up an underspin, and I was throwing an underspin, something I, catch fish on in the fall, and they started hitting that underspin. So I pretty much just caught fish all day long. Going into day 2, I tried to replicate the same bite, making the same casts, going to the same places, hitting the same targets, and I found out pretty quick that wasn't going to be the case. I even let the storm kind of roll through and, that get past us to see if that was going to kickstart the fish a little bit. And it really didn't. So the chatterbait bite went away for the most part. I did end up catching like a couple in the morning, and I caught 118 on it. But then pretty much it was done. And then I tried to go back to the underspin as well, and I didn't get a bite on it at all the second day. So quickly I knew I had to make some changes. I ended up tying on a jig and tying on a spinnerbait too, just to give that a try. I started catching some fish on the spinnerbait, some smaller ones, so the bites started picking up a little bit. Do this tight on, and then as the water got slick calm, I thought, maybe I'll just flip a jig around and see what I can muster up there. And I did catch my biggest fish on that jig. I mean, it was pretty slow in the morning for the most part. Like I said, I had an 18. I probably had a limit. I don't recall exactly, but I think I had a limit before I started flipping that jig around, and I threw it on this bush, and that's where I caught my big fish, which is a 20 1/4. And I was kind of watching the leaderboard too, and I jumped out into an early lead, and I thought, okay, but I had a small limit, so I figured these guys were going to catch me, that the bite was going to turn on, and sure enough, right before I caught that 20 1/4, I looked at the leaderboard, and I was down. I was in 3rd place, and Chad Davison had passed me, and he had a 6-inch lead on me, just like that. And so I was like, okay. And then I caught that 20 1/4, and that gave me a pretty significant upgrade, gave me a 1-inch lead at that point. And I thought, okay, here, now I've got a real kicker in my bag. So, if I can just keep my head down and keep grinding, throw that spinnerbait around, flip that jig around as much as I can and grind out a few inches, for upgrades, I might have a chance here. So anyway, I didn't get as many bites on day 2, but the bites that I did get were better bites. I ended up catching a couple more 18s and a 17. A 17 was my smallest fish of the day.
You broke 90 or?
Yeah, I was 91 3/4.
Yeah.
On that second day, and and it was primarily the jig and the spinnerbait that got it done for me. I had to make a lot of casts that spinnerbait though.
Do you have a favorite jig or spinnerbait? Or you don't want to say?
No, it's fine. I said it last night on the Moyak podcast, but the jig that's been doing real good for me this year is a motion fishing jig. And I throw a couple different colors depending on what lake I'm on, but this one that I've been throwing on the rivers, and I threw I threw on Truman, was it's called what's it called, Magic Craw. Gosh dang it. Magic something or other. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's called Magic Craw, I think it is. And I got it paired up with a Green Pumpkin Speed Craw as well.
Okay.
And it looks real good. There's a picture that I took of that jig in that 20's mouth. You know, I took a picture of it, and man, it looks really good. It looks like a real craw. So anyway,
Apparently he agreed, or she.
yeah, whatever she was. Yeah, but I ended up catching quite a few fish on that jig on day 2, and then the spinnerbait I've been throwing recently is a nickel spinnerbait. So I'll throw a couple different colors, but that one in particular was a bait fish color, and it was 3/8 ounce with 2 willow leaf blades. So not the real big willow leaf blades, but the smaller ones. And so it was pretty effective on day 2 for me.
I would say so. I mean, were you going into day 2 thinking that, where was your head at?
I was going into day 2 thinking that I had a lot of fish in my area, and depending on the mood that they were in, that, I thought I could easily catch another limit, and I'd be somewhere between 75 and 80 inches, and if I got a couple nicer ones, I figured I'd be, I could possibly hit mid 80s, honestly.
Yeah.
And after what happened on day 1, I was thinking, if I hit mid 80s, I'm in good shape here, right?
Sure.
Real good shape. But yeah, I did not expect to catch the bag that I did on day 2.
Did day 2 kind of turn up for everybody, or did you just key in on something special? Obviously you did.
I think day 2 was a better day for a few of the anglers. I didn't look at everyone's bag, but I know the guy that got second, Troy Caldwell. He caught like 87 and some change, and so he was on a bigger bite. He caught the biggest fish of the tournament on day 2, which was like a 22 and a half, I want to say. But it was over 22 inches, and
wow.
And later on, he and I chatted about his day, and he said he lost one before he got that 22. He said he lost a big one before that one. So he said it was probably a 20, at least a 20. So if he'd have caught that and that 22, I mean, you might have been talking to somebody else, but yeah.
So yeah, shout out to Cyber Yacker Adventures over here. I think this might be one of the first times I've seen him on the podcast here. So appreciate having you up in the comment section. Casual Bass Guy. He's a Wichita guy. He's an Air Capital guy. He went up and he battled it out with you out there. He says, "Congrats, man. Have you spoiled yourself at all with any new gear, or was it straight to the bank?"
Yeah, well, unfortunately my truck broke down afterwards. I've been having some problems with it. Yeah, the transmission went out in it, so I mean, I paid for a new transmission. So
hey, man,
that's
perfect
really the
timing.
only thing I paid for. Yeah.
You still got a few bucks left after that's done.
Yeah.
Are you
I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure the wife's got some plans for you.
I'm sure she does.
Are you looking forward to any equipment upgrades for next year?
I'm probably due for some new reels. I've got, I'm still using some reels that I've had for, going on 5 or 6 years now. Some of the old Bass Pro stuff that I acquired early on, and so I'll probably do a little bit of upgrading on the reels at least.
So yeah, you worked pretty closely with Bass Pro. I know Ascend and all that, all their line of products. So
right.
Outside of their brand, do you have a favorite reel, or are you just going to kind of explore?
I've been exploring a little bit. I mean, I've got some Lew's stuff in the lineup.
Okay.
They're here out of Springfield as well, and they used to have a little outlet store down the road, but they since closed that down here. Let's see what else. I picked up some Abu Garcia reels this year,
Mm-hmm.
which are pretty nice. I think they're the Revo SXs.
Sure.
They're like $159 reel, but I got a few of those, and they're pretty good too. So anyway, I'm not committed or dedicated to anything.
Yeah.
So
But if any of you guys are watching like Daiwa or Shimano, like hit this guy up, man. Let's get him
yeah,
committed.
yeah, that sounds good.
So I guess the fog casual bass guys talking about the fog there was that through all the storms and whatnot, or
That was that was
oh,
day
day
one.
one.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was launching it in a pretty remote spot on day one, and I rolled down there, and there was super thick fog on the water, and it was kind of eerie. It was cool, but it was eerie. The funny thing, I haven't told this story yet in any of the podcast, but I was down there early in the morning getting ready, and I arrived like an hour early, just to make sure that I'd get my stuff ready, and if anyone else were to show up there, I could kind of game plan and figure out what I wanted to do. But as I was getting ready, I was by myself. I swear to you, I heard an elk bugle across the lake, which where I was is not that far,
Mhm.
and it was dark and there was fog everywhere, and I was like, man, that was cool. I thought I was on a Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom show for a second there, and one of the guys I was staying with, Troy Yankee, he's like, there's no elk in this area.
Mhm.
I'm like, baloney. He thinks it was a hunter,
Yeah.
out there in the distance, kind of goofing around. But I was like, I don't know, man. That sounded like an elk. It was an elk for sure. But I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, you might have missed out on the elusive Missouri elk, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Russell Marine Products in the house. They're apparently watching, so shout out to those guys. What part of what he's trying to steal your spot is what he's trying to do. Uh, what part of the lake did you focus on and why?
Let's see here. So there was no specific parts. I hit a couple of different major river arms coming into the
Okay.
lake. Now, I was focusing on some really shallow stuff, backs of creeks, backs of pockets, longer,
Mhm.
longer, longer pockets and stuff like that, like in the very back. So I was getting into some really shallow stuff, and I learned a few weeks ago, with the water being as low as it was, that you can get back into these shallow areas, hit some mud flats, to where you could beat your boat. I had the Hobie with me a few weeks ago. This time I took a different
Mhm.
kayak, a Jackson kayak, so I could draft a little bit shallower. But if you can
Yeah.
get over some of those mud flats, then you can find some ditches, and find a little bit deeper water behind that, where boats or other kayaks may not even try to get to. And so that's where I was finding some of these schools of bait fish and bass schooling up, chasing them. So
Very cool.
mm-hmm.
So you were in the bite.
I was
Is that
uh,
right?
a
Did
Jackson
you
bite.
have did you have any issues with paddling, or were you pretty much out of the wind the entire time?
Yeah, I didn't. I really didn't have any issues with the
Yeah.
wind. A couple times, I probably got blown down a little bit, but there was no major issues. I was able to hold my water, hold the kayak in the water that I needed to hold in pretty much all weekend long, and make the cast I needed to make. So it was the right choice.
Around here, we have traditionally fished, and we have a lot smaller bodies of water where we're at, especially versus Lake of the Ozarks or Truman or Table Rock, any of those
Sure,
places.
sure,
So you don't see people packing up and relaunching from different locations, because a lot of the times in these bodies of water, it's not necessary. something that Justin did, we recently had him to talk about. He won the KBN state championship, and he actually launched his kayak, I think 5 or 6 different times. He was just moving all day long. Is that kind of what you were doing? Just kind of looking around? No.
No, I mean, during practice day, that's what I was doing. I was hitting 2 and 3 spots a day, just to search for water and see what was going on. But I landed on one particular spot, and during practice, whenever I fished this spot, I didn't catch anything over 16 inches on that spot, and I didn't fish it real hard either. I kind of popped in, made a few key casts, caught a couple fish, where they should have been, and I was like, okay, this, maybe this is a spot I'm going to come back to. And so I ended up going back to that one particular spot. And, so for me to catch almost 92 inches out of that area on day 2, like I said, I wasn't expecting that. I figured I'd be in the 80s, if I could find some bigger fish in there that I could crack 80s or possibly mid 80s in there and, do well in the tournament, have a good showing. But like I said, I didn't expect to catch 92 inches out of there, but they were there.
That was a heck of a surprise then. I mean,
yeah.
Is this so you were able to practice? I think I heard maybe on another podcast you had maybe been pre-fishing for a week or so before, or what did your pre-fishing look like?
So for the Classic, I actually arrived Wednesday morning and pre-fished Wednesday, pre-fished Thursday, and then went right into the tournament on Friday and Saturday. So, a few weeks ago, prior to the tournament, we had the last regular season All American tournament there, and so I had fished that, and I got like 5th place, I think, in that tournament. Okay. So I mean, it was really an opportunity to get on the lake, see what it was kind of doing, seeing what the water level was. And the water level didn't change very much. I mean, I think it was up maybe less than a foot than what it was.
Did your approach change drastically between your 5th place finish and your 1st place finish? I mean, were you doing some similar things? Were you fishing similar areas, or?
I wasn't as shallow as I was. Yeah. During the regular season tournament, a few weeks before the Classic, I brought my Hobie, and I got it stuck a couple times trying to get back into some of these areas. So I mean, but I did catch some fish. I think I only caught like 72 inches. I mean the fishing was tough, in that tournament. It was a 1-day tournament, but I started thinking about it, and I was like, okay, I'll bring the smaller kayak, see if I can push back in there and get shallower. And I would have been comfortable fishing the main lake in that kayak too. So, it gave me some options. So anyway, yeah, that's the difference between the 2 tournaments, and a few weeks difference.
Now, you also mentioned not doing so well. Was that also at Truman?
Yeah,
like 60 something. I mean, you were clear up there. I mean, how far long back was that? Like, how far before this 5th place finish was that?
That was June.
And what is your history with Truman? Like, have you been fishing it for all the years that you've been in that area, or?
We fished Truman in Moayak once back in 2015. Never went back to it until maybe a couple of years ago. Maybe it was last year. We ended up going back. But anyway, so I had very little history on it, and previously I hadn't fished it either. So it's definitely not a home lake for me. I do have some time on the water now, and I've had some decent results.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I've had some horrible results. I mean that tournament in June, I think there were 82 anglers that fished it, and I finished 62nd place in June. So I definitely don't have that lake figured out.
For you guys that are watching, I mean, just listen to what he's saying here. I mean, don't give up on going out there, getting your butt kicked, especially if you know that the body of water is producing fish. You see other people are catching them. You see the limits all the way down the field. Like
Right.
you can dial that in too, for the guys that are in this area, not too far, I don't know, maybe CBG can pop in here and tell us, but I want to say it's probably within 4 or 5 hours from the Wichita area. So we'll have some opportunities to go over there and fish with you guys. And I definitely do hope to see not only the Air Capital Kayak Anglers show out, but now the newly formed Kansas Kayak Anglers. So yeah, hopefully we can put together a big group of guys and go show out for the All American next time around, which sounds like it'll be in the springtime. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel pretty good about it. Spring's an exciting time, especially for a lake like Truman and a lake like Lake of the Ozarks. There's some big ones in there, in both those lakes. So, I think some really big bags can be pulled out of there, and a couple 100-inch bags, depending on how many anglers we've got. It's going to be exciting.
Heck yeah.
It's a lot of pressure on guys because you've got to be close to 100 inches, to be doing well, so
Yeah.
I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I've never caught 100 inches in one day.
I haven't either. I have not either. There's been some guys in your area that do it. I think typically the guys that are doing it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the two that I'm thinking of right now are both throwing big swim baits.
Potentially.
You know,
I know Jim Harding broke 100 inches. I think he's the only one to ever break
okay.
100 inches in a Moyak tournament, and he did it on
In a lot.
Truman.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Truman.
Yeah.
Probably in a sit inside kayak, maybe. Is that right?
If you know Jim, he's in a little sit inside kayak, fishing, water that most of us can't get to. So,
and he's not going anywhere, is he? He just keeps putting those numbers up.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim's a local legend around here. So I suspect we'll see more of him for the next few years, at least.
So shot in the dark here. Fat Bass is just, you donating any of that to a poor boy? I'm assuming he's talking about himself.
So you know what? I haven't kept all my records, but I'm pretty sure even though I won $10,000, it doesn't cover all the money I've spent.
Yeah.
Over the last 5 or 6 years in chasing tournaments and stuff.
Yeah, it adds up for sure.
Yeah.
And so I was going to ask you too, like, what is
Lost you there, John. Okay.
All right, guys. Sorry about that. I have no idea what happened. Just lost internet and it took a minute to get back. So luckily, Brian is hanging out backstage. We're going to bring him on and try to just pick up where we left off. We are back in action. All right. Sorry about that, man. And no, I did not get hit by a tornado.
Well, I was
So I
checking my
don't know.
internet too because I didn't know if it was you or me that dropped. So
I don't know what happened. I went inside and my router was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and apparently it just lost connection. So, okay. So I was asking about the 2 day. I don't know how far into that you got before we started having issues, but if you want to go back into like what is your history with 2 day events, and how maybe did you have to change your approach for this one?
yeah, I fished some 2 day events before. I fished some of the Hobies. We fished national championships.
Yeah.
You know, um, let's see what else. So anyway, I fished some 2 day events before, but I felt like for this one I was very prepared, very very prepared, and I'll also talk about something that I haven't really discussed in the other podcasts too. Uh, Last year, when I was sitting there in the award ceremony, knowing I just got my butt handed to me, by Truman Lake, and I'm watching Jeremy Mitchell stand up on stage holding a $10,000 check. You know, um, I realized that I hadn't put a whole lot of effort into this tournament because
Hmm.
I was focusing on BASS and trying to qualify for the classic.
Mm-hmm.
I had invested a lot of time and effort into that new series, and I was real excited about it, and I just didn't do real well. And so I was going to the end of the season, trying to figure out how am I going to qualify for the classic. And I had a couple more opportunities, and so I didn't really give a lot of effort to to the classic, or at least as much as I could. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting there and I'm watching him announce Jeremy as the winner, and he's holding up a big check, big trophy. It's a big ordeal, and it's like a light bulb just comes on. I'm like, thinking to myself, what are you doing? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't have to travel across the country for this
Yeah.
one. It's here, it's close by. And the winner just won $10,000. Where's your
Yeah.
head at? Where's your priority?
Yeah.
And and it was that moment that I really, uh, you know, I made a mental note to myself to focus on this tournament. Prepare, and for a full year, I was studying the lake maps, or the lake map for Truman a lot. I was looking at certain areas, and I knew I was committed to doing different things if I had to. And I mean, I didn't stare at it every day all year long, but a few weeks would go by, and I'd be bored. I'd at work, and I'd pull up the lake map, the Truman
Yeah.
Lake map, and I just start looking at areas and stuff, and just mentally preparing myself. So coming into it, I knew that I had scoured that lake, you know, um, with my eyes long enough that the areas I had picked out, I felt pretty good about. As a matter of fact, the area that I won the championship in, I found that spot in, back in July. And the only reason
Hmm.
why I remember that is because I was having a discussion with another person about it, and he and I were looking at it on the map together, and he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that looks pretty good." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that looks really good. I think I'm gonna add that to my list, right?" And so
Yeah.
so it was on my list, and ended up producing. So
Heck yeah, man.
yeah,
What are you using for your map study? Are you like Google Earth or Navionics or
yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I just use Google Maps. You know,
Mhm.
hop on there, and I'll look at, um, you know, I'll look at both the topo portion of it, and then
Mhm.
just the regular map view, just to get a good understanding, of the major creeks that are coming in, and river systems that are coming in, and coupled with a little bit of experience on fishing around those areas,
Mhm.
I think for me, I think if you're good enough to look at a lake map and have never been on the lake before and say, okay, I want to go here, because of this, this, and this, and then you go and you end up whacking them, and doing real well in a tournament, my hat's off to you. But for me, I've actually got to spend some time on the lake,
Yeah.
and I think the last couple of years has given me that experience that I needed. I know what this arm looks like. I know what this area looks like. I don't know what this looks like down here because I've never fished that area, but so I've been trying to seek out new and different areas this year of that lake, and that's probably why I ended up with the 62nd place finish in June because I was trying some new areas I'd never fished before.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I prepared for this one. I was dialed in pretty early in the season, getting ready for this tournament.
That kind of goes with what Casual Bass Guy is saying here. So he wants to know, when did you start fishing out of a kayak? But also he says he's noticed how giant Truman Lake is. Is there a ton of dead water? So is that part of why you didn't finish so well? Did you find some of that dead water? Or is it just super productive all the way throughout the whole entire thing? Maybe that's not very
Yeah.
realistic.
I think it's like the lake. I think there's areas of the lake that do well at either in certain conditions or a certain time of the year. I think that lake last year whenever we fished the classic there, it was turning over. So that led to some tough conditions. So you had to find some water that wasn't turning over quite the same way, and I didn't find it. As a matter of fact, that tournament in June, this is another thing too. They tell you to don't fish history, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I've been doing since I started fishing Truman the last couple of years. I have this area that I did okay in. I had a decent result in two tournaments back to back. I think I was top 10 in one, and like I got 7th in the other one. But then I just kept going back to that area. I wasn't putting in the time. I'd try a couple different spots. I didn't quite like it, or I didn't invest the time that I needed to. Then I'd go back to that area, and that area just kept burning me every time I'd go back to it.
It's like, surely it's going to hit one of these days.
Yeah, right. So that's what happened in June. I went up and I fished an area where I found some fish, and I caught some, and they weren't very big, but at least I had some fish. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go for the win. I know I've got better fish in the old area that I fished before. Let's go back there. Just a bad choice.
Are you ever going to fish that area ever again?
I might go back to it someday.
Gosh dang it. He's stubborn. He's just like the rest of us. He's stubborn.
Well, it's got to be the right moment. I'll tell you this. I considered going to it during practice for the Classic, and I never made it over there.
Good.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah. So yeah.
So the first part of the question, when did you start fishing out of a kayak?
2013-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. So back in the I want to say early 2000s, late 90s or early 2000s, I started tournament fishing with a friend of mine, and then I ended up moving up to Washington State for a couple of years, and I was doing some federation tournaments up there. And of course, at that time, work and kids start to take precedence, and so I stopped fishing so competitively, and it really wasn't that competitive, So, but then I was just doing buddy tournaments here and there, and then as the boys were getting older, my middle son, he wanted to buy a kayak. He saved up all his Christmas money. He's like, "Oh, I want to buy a kayak," and it was just out of nowhere, for him. And he's an outdoorsy kid, and I was like, "Yeah, cool, that sounds good." So we went and got him a kayak, and then I realized after we put him in the water one day, I was like, "Oh, I need a kayak," because he can't go by himself. He's only 10.
Yeah.
So I got a kayak, and And I didn't realize at the time how good our rivers and streams are. I mean, literally in my backyard,
Yeah.
for smallmouth fishing. I've got this stretch on the James River that's like 15, maybe 20 minutes away, where you could
Mhm.
put in and fish a couple stretches. I mean, really, you could put in like a mile down the road from my house. And, just had a blast. And that first summer that we had our kayaks, there were days that summer I probably floated that stretch 20 times.
Mm.
My kid wasn't always with me. I'd take off in the middle of the day sometimes and go float it. But yeah, I probably fished it 20 times. I just loved it. And then I started getting the bug to do some tournament fishing, and noticing that tournament kayak fishing was starting to blow up a little bit, and so
Mhm.
I was going to go try that out, and I mean, here's some history for you guys. I've got a friend of mine who used to work for Bass Pro Shops. He was the old marketing director. He's now working for MLF as their marketing vice president of marketing.
Wow.
But our kids played sports together, and so he and I are having a conversation one day, at a game, and I started asking questions about Bass Pro Shops buying Ranger boats. And that's when all that happened, and he starts answering questions. We get into a discussion, and he was like, "Do you fish?" And I was like, "Yeah, I fish." He goes, "What are you fishing out of right now?" I told him an Ascend kayak, and he was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." And I said I'm probably going to jump to some tournaments down in Arkansas. And he said, he goes, "We're looking for somebody right now. Would you be willing to, wear our gear and use our our gear, and
No way.
we outfit you with all this stuff, give you some GoPros?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds awesome." And so that's how it kind of kicked off for me. And I had just met Eric Hansen. We crossed paths on social media, and had done a float trip together and went fishing, and I hit him up. I said, "Hey man, would you be interested in pro staffing for Bass Pro Shops?" And he goes, "Hey, how about instead of that, would you be interested in pitching to them about being our major sponsor for a Missouri trail?" I
Yeah.
was like, "Sure, that sounds good." Anyway, long story short, that's how we got
Heck
kicked
yeah.
off. Yeah.
Well, heck yeah. And that's around the time that I started Air Capital. And so I've got family in Ozark. And so I was down there visiting family, and I had somehow seen something on Facebook about Ozark Extreme Kayak Pro Shop or whatever. It was the longest name ever, right?
Yeah, right.
Kayak Fishing Pro Shop. I don't remember. But
Yeah.
so I was like, all right, well, so me and my stepdad drove down, from Ozark, drove up there to Table Rock, and we're like, we're going to go check this place out. And just no idea of what to expect. And it's just like this
Sure.
little tiny, it's like the size of my garage,
Right.
But like he was super cool, and yeah, he was just super welcoming, and offered to sponsor the club, and he did. He sponsored the Air Capital kayak anglers for several years, even after that, and sent us goodies and stuff to hand out at events. And I do remember your guy at Bass Pro definitely hooked you guys up, because you gave away some really cool prizes from Ascend and Bass Pro and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely hooked you guys up.
Dude,
But
we had so much Ascend products floating around our group. I mean, we gave away
kayaks at every event. I mean, were you doing that for a while? Yeah,
we gave away a kayak at every tournament for like 3 years.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah. So I mean, some people don't know that. Some don't remember it. Some do. It was just nuts. And now, I mean that's not the standard anymore. You don't give away kayaks at a club tournament anymore. Granted, they were Ascends. They weren't super high end, but they were $700-800 kayaks.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Anyway. Yeah.
Heck yeah. No, that was cool. And so yeah, I think I only fished a couple Moyak events. One at Taneycomo and one at Table Rock, I believe, are the only two that I fished. So definitely need to change that. But let's see. I'm slacking on comments here. Let's go look over here, see what we got. Matt Scoochis, local hammer. He says, who's ready for Truman? Joel better show up. Joel, Fat Bass's TV, you better show up. I thought it said John at first. I should show up too. I'm feeling a little bit guilty. Casual Bass Guy wants to know how was your year overall with Moyak and maybe also with the All American?
So, in a nutshell, my Moyak season was the worst season I've ever had. I mean,
Really?
I finished 25th in Angler of the Year, and not to be upset about that or anything, but I'm not. It's by far my worst year. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think I finished top 5 last year, and I finished 3rd the year before. So yeah, I mean, I was a dumpster fire pretty much in the Moyak series, but for some reason I did well in the All American series. You know,
Heck
I
yeah.
mean, we went down to Ouachita for the first tournament, and I finished 2nd place. We went up to Okoboji up in Iowa, and I was like 5th or 6th or something like that up there.
That was one I wanted to make it to. How was that? I mean, obviously you fished well. What'd you think about that place?
That was, I mean, that was awesome, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we hit those lakes just right, and it was one of those deals where my plan A worked. I mean, I put in, I think I can't recall, but it's East Okoboji. Like, there's like seven little lakes that are all connected there, and you can fish any of them. Spirit Lake, East Okoboji, West Okoboji, and a couple others I don't remember the names of. But you know, I put in, and I literally went a couple hundred yards down to the first boat dock, and this thing was a big circle, natural lake, and the middle of it was just choked out with grass, and then around the edges there's docks everywhere. And I went over to the first dock, and I started throwing a chatterbait, and I just started getting whacked. So, and it was just like, you didn't have to throw it close to the dock, you just had to throw it around the dock, and they were just all setting up to spawn, and we're catching these footballs, you know, footballs for largemouth bass, and it was just awesome. I mean, it was like that the entire time we were there, even on tournament day. And then whenever the sun came out, you just skip a Cinco up underneath the dock, and you pull out those same fish. So I mean, it was great. It was a pretty lake too. It was really nice.
Clear water, or
yeah, it was pretty clear.
Heck yeah. Now, you didn't make it to Wilson, did you?
I didn't.
No, you got to come next year. Wilson's a good one.
I wanted to. You know what's funny was I was actually driving by Wilson as the tournament was going on. We were coming back from a family vacation from Colorado.
Okay.
and on that Saturday, I was driving right by Wilson Lake.
Yeah.
Coming home. Yeah.
It's a good one, man, and I don't know. They've got a lot of tournaments on it, but it's holding up, and you're talking, I don't know, probably that time of year, 90 inches, I believe, to win it. So, I mean, pretty dang good, especially for a Kansas lake. Clear water, which is not the norm around here either.
Right.
Let's see. Scoocha says he's ready to get back at Truman for round 2. They're talking about getting an Airbnb for a group of guys. I'm down. Guys, let me know. Let's get me committed. That way I can't back out at the last minute. Those butt kickings sure stick with a guy. Yeah, you get your butt kicked a few times, and you might you might learn not to come back. But don't let it break you. Hard to beat not only time on the water, but time on a specific body of water.
Yeah.
Yes, need to get a group of guys qualified. Okay, and then, oh yeah, so what is your current yak setup? So you did talk about the Jackson Bite a little bit. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're in a Hobie Pro Angler 360?
Right, 14. Yep.
14?
Yep.
What do you think about that?
I love the boat. I mean, it's a great boat. So it is my primary kayak, and like I was telling some of these other interviews, I'm not a minimalist. I carry a lot of tackle, a lot of rods. I try to keep it to 7, but that never happens.
Yeah.
I'm usually 8, 9, or 10 rods, in the boat. 10 gets a little messy because then I got to leave a couple on the deck.
So do you try not to use the horizontal rod storage then?
I do, but I only like to use one side of it, one side, and I like to leave the other side empty because if you got them both filled up, then that just closes in your usable space. And I like to lay that board flat, the catch board flat on the deck.
You do?
Whenever I'm taking pictures. Yeah. So
I'm wanting to switch over to that, but I just still, like, I'm so used to weighing them on my, across my knees. For some reason, it just feels more secure to me. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got a system now where I stand my net up on the side, against the gunnel, stand up and down, and I'll press the board up against it. And I can put the fish in, and if they flop into the net almost.
Have you had that happen? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah.
They'll just flop right in there. Yeah. You're just like, gotcha, sucker.
Yep. Exactly. So
yeah. Usually you're like in tears when that happens.
Well, the nice thing with the Hobie, the Pro Angler, I mean, it's got such a tall gunnel that
high sides, yeah.
It takes a pretty good flop to get out of that boat, usually.
Sure. I came from an Outback, so I really do like the Pro Angler quite a bit more. So are you catching mostly smallies or largemouth out of these rivers in your area?
Well, we're going for the smallmouth, but I catch a lot of largemouth out of them as well. The Gasconade River is central Missouri, and it's well known to have some big smallmouth in there. And the last time we fished it, I was throwing a buzzbait and I was catching largemouth. I was, I mean, like my first 4 or 5 fish were largemouth. I was like, okay, I came from the smallmouth, and I eventually got into the smallmouth. But yeah, there's plenty of largemouth in these rivers. So even in the James River, I mean, there's days I'll go out and fish the James River, and I'll throw a buzzbait and I'll catch nothing but largemouth. And although it's chock full of smallmouth. So
one of these days I'm gonna have you let me tag along, because I don't know where to fish around there. I think one time we tried to fish somewhere in Ozark. There's like a little park down there.
Yeah.
Finley River. If you know her. Yeah, maybe so. I didn't catch nothing. I'm sure there's fish there, but
yeah, if it's an Ozark and there's a park there, that's probably the Finley River Park, actually. So that's the Finley River that runs through there. It's a tributary to the James.
Okay.
Yeah, but give me a call sometime if you want to come float the James. I mean, I got a couple nice little stretches, and I'll put you on some fish there. Yeah, it's a good time.
Excited for Wilson next year. Trolling motor. Are you running a trolling motor?
I'm running a Newport Vessels electric motor.
I think I did hear you talk about that on a couple podcasts ago.
Yeah. I was probably one of the first ones to put that on my boat because I ran a Torpedo last year. Excuse me. I ran a 403 last year, and it was a demo motor. So I had to give it back this year, and so I had to make a decision, am I going to buy one? Am I going to, go without? And so I kind of held off, and all of a sudden this Newport Vessels came out, and, it caught a lot of flack because it was a Torpedo clone. Yeah, right. And really, I mean, the design is, almost identical to the Torpedo, really. So, I get it, but
served you well though, right?
It has, and it saved me about $1,000.
$1,000. I mean, there's your rod and reel, set up right there.
Yeah,
or some of them, anyways.
I mean, nobody's giving me a motor, so if I gotta pay for it.
Yeah, heck yeah. Newport might give you one now.
I've had a couple conversations with them. I'm going to do a 1-year review on it. I mean, mine's
That's cool.
strong, and I ran it in the river and I ran it on the lake, and I have beat it up a little bit. Not quite like Cody Milton's. I saw a picture of his, and he was missing a lot of paint on his motor, and
Is he running the same one?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's been durable. It's been real durable, and the performance is, it's negligible, really.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between them. So,
Sure.
with the 403, I could run about 5 to 5.1 miles per hour with the Hobie, and then with this Newport, I run about 4.8 miles an hour. So, not real noticeable.
No. What's your PB Smalley?
So out of the Gasconade, I caught a 19. I think it's a 19 or 19 and a half 2 years ago on a buzzbait, just a hammer,
big old round one,
smallmouth. It wasn't built like a football. It was built like a missile, but it was old and it was big. Yeah, it pulled hard in the river.
Heck yeah.
Yep.
What is something like that gonna weigh? 4 or 5?
No, that one is probably 3, maybe 3.5 pounds.
Yeah,
but it was a big, strong one for sure.
I was gonna say, because I've weighed 18 and a half, and it was over 3.
Really?
So I mean, you might have been close to 4.
Yeah, I'll share a picture of it with you after
Heck
we're
yeah.
done here. Actually.
Richie says, I won the big bass pot of the 2018 river event with a 2025 largemouth on the Gasconade. He was probably sworn to secrecy, but he just let the cat out of the bag.
No, he did. I remember that. I mean, I remember that tournament that he caught that big one. He was on the stretch down from us, actually, and I remember seeing that fish. I was like, my God, thing's a monster for the river.
Yeah. Heck yeah. CBG says if Crypto does well, he's definitely getting a Newport. Gosh dang. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well, you got a big old trophy back there if you want to give the folks a look at that. I know you're probably getting sleepy yet.
Yeah, it's getting late here.
Look at that. That's nice.
It's a sweet trophy. I mean, I don't know if I get the whole thing in the camera without backing up.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's metal. It must be made of aluminum or something like that because it's not super heavy.
Yeah. You got a nice collection of hardware, I'm sure, but that's got to be the biggest one.
By far the biggest one. Yeah. So I'm proud of that one. I really am. So.
What'd the wife and kids think about it?
Oh, they thought it was cool. They appreciate it. And it's not just about the money. They know I've been putting in a lot of time, over the years and trying to win one of these big ones and spend a lot of time on the road and effort. And so they were pretty stoked.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Dad made it.
Finally.
Dude, I mean, it's been a long road. I mean, you're talking 2013 even when you started and you kind of got the bug and really Moyak wasn't up and running for a couple years after that even. So
right.
I'm sure you're working full time and doing the family thing and kids got sports and like all this other stuff. So for you to be able to be as consistent as you have all these years and come away with a big trophy, like sure, if you were able to dedicate 100% of your time, like I'm sure it would have happened a lot sooner.
Yeah, you never know. And I said this last night, but Troy said this to me, and it was like an epiphany whenever he said it. But he said, when it's your time, it's your time. I mean, I fished clean. I made good decisions. I mean, I was fortunate. I told this story last night in the Moyak podcast, but that spinnerbait I was throwing, I had that spinnerbait hanging on a bungee cord in my kayak just in case I wanted to throw a spinnerbait, and it was on that bungee cord all week long. Finally, on the last day of the tournament, I tied it on and I went fishing with it. Caught fish all day on it. Got mangled up, had to bend it back in place. All that stuff. And then the last hour of the day, I ended up losing it. And after I had my 91 3/4, right? And I thought, well, no big deal. I'll just reach back and grab another one. I didn't bring my spinnerbait box.
Oh man,
I didn't have another spinnerbait. So I mean, just goes to show you, if it's your time, it's your time. So.
And is that when you tied on the underspin without any luck, or?
Well, at that point, I just picked the chatterbait back up, and I caught a couple small ones, but it was, I mean, my day was pretty much over at that point. So
yeah, heck yeah, man. Yeah, I think it's also important to understand that, you are one, and maybe not even a mistake away. Like, you could have done everything right and had the other guy landed that 20-inch fish or whatever. Like, you can do everything that you were supposed to do, and you could still lose by 1/4 of an inch, And so I think that's important to, like, maybe humble yourself, but also like motivate yourself. Because you're going to have to go out, and the next one's a whole nother story,
Yeah. Well, I think that just says that, there's only so much you can do.
Yep.
Do what you can do, control what you can control, make the best decisions that you can, and eliminate any of those errors, and then let the chips fall where they may. Right. So,
yeah. Heck yeah.
It was my time, so I'll take it.
Absolutely. I think it definitely was. Casual Bass Guy has a good comment here. Great episode. Got some good stuff out of Brian I didn't get from the other podcast. Congrats, and look forward to fishing with you next time at Truman.
Yeah, sounds great. Look forward to fishing with all you guys too. Hey, I was going to mention something to you. You may or may not know this, but I grew up in Kansas. I grew up in Fort Scott, Kansas. So,
okay.
Do you guys
got any?
You guys go through and fish Bone Creek, right? And Lake Fort Scott?
So Lake Fort Scott hasn't been traditionally one of the lakes that we fish, but this year the Southeast Kansas Kayak Anglers did fish there. I think it might be the first ever kayak fishing event there. Okay. I think they did pretty well there. Bone Creek is a regular.
Cedar Creek.
Cedar Creek, I don't know that Cedar Creek they might have had one at Cedar Creek this year, but Cedar Creek hasn't traditionally been on the schedule. Yeah, I know it's one that a lot of people talk about.
It's a smaller body of water, so
clear water, lots of timber.
Yeah, lots of timber. Yeah, it's a
I've never been.
It's a fairly new lake. And it's not very big, so I mean it can get crowded pretty quick. But anyway. I keep looking at the schedules, over in Kansas, and every year I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to make this Bone Creek one because, I'd love to go back and fish, and it just never works out. But at some point I'd like to run over there and fish some of those lakes with you guys and join you guys for a tournament or two.
Heck yeah. Had you ever made it out to one of the King of the Hill events on a big hill?
I haven't.
No.
That hasn't worked out either for me. Yeah.
That's a pretty good one too. And then the strip pits is also another cool one. Have you ever fished in the strip pits before?
The public strip pits, yes, but like I said, I grew up there, so I was fishing strip pits, for a long time. Private strip pits. Yeah. So.
Yeah, the first time I'd been to the strip pit or the Mineland Wildlife Area, was this year. And it was just like a whole nother world going out there and seeing all those little ponds, basically just right next to each other, stacked right on top of each other. And it was wild. You go to one of them and it was dirty water. And then I went to the one literally just across the street within walking distance of it, and it was 15 foot of visibility. It was just nuts.
Yeah.
It was pretty sweet. So definitely a destination.
The only time I'd been out there, I'd gone with Josh Booth one time. I think I was in Kansas seeing family and stuff, and I was like, I'll drive through and fish with Josh, and he and I went, and I don't think he showed me his favorite pits. I think he took me to a couple of secondary pits. Yeah,
he's like, I'll show you this one over here.
Yeah, right. So,
but
it's all good. Yeah, it's cool out there for sure.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. I'll go ahead and let you sign off here, and definitely look forward to seeing you next year with Moyak and with the All American as well. So for all of you guys that are watching, definitely give them check them out if you're in the Kansas area, or I think you guys even had people from some guys from Michigan were coming down and fishing that series. So it's a pretty all-inclusive, trying to branch out as far as they can across the Midwest and maybe even throughout the entire country.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah, I know they're branching a little bit further this next season. They're going to go into Kentucky, fish Kentucky Lake, and I think they're looking at
really.
I thought I heard Tyler saying something about looking at something in Wyoming as well. So
holy crap, that's cool.
Yeah. So they're looking to grow and stretch out a little bit.
Well, I just want to congratulate you on the big win, and enjoyed having you on the show and learning some things about you. And we're definitely going to have to mix it up, as my Missouri connections and your Kansas connections. We'll have to make it happen one of these days.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for having me, and thanks again for everything.
Yeah, no problem, man. You have a good one, and we'll see you soon.
See ya.
All right, guys, that was it. Brian Hillman. Really good having him on the show. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I really ought to probably invest in some equipment to ensure that doesn't happen again. Totally unforeseen, but I don't know. My router inside the house was kind of doing some weird stuff there. So anyways, guys, for those of you that stuck on this long, definitely appreciate you. Definitely appreciate you sharing this podcast with a friend. I know there's a lot of people out there that probably paid attention to not only Brian himself. There's definitely a lot of guys following him through being, one of the founding Moyak members, right? Also, you have the All American series and the Moyak series that people are really paying a lot of attention to. Those guys have done a really good job about introducing people to the sport. And that is something that I think that we want to do here in the area. And that's something that I've tried to do over the years, but haven't really been successful. We'll see, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, members, maybe new members being introduced, but it seems like we're always losing nearly just as many. So guys, if you're interested in kayak fishing at all, if you're new to the sport, give me a shout. Hit up Jacob Ward, hit up Josie Stone, hit up Steve Lutz, hit up any of these guys that are fishing these series. I guarantee you, if you put some feelers out there, you will be in a kayak for an event, and just a solid group of guys that come out and fish these events. And that's who I'm talking to right now. So appreciate you guys for all of the work that you do to help promote the sport of kayak fishing in this area. Love seeing the growth over there in Missouri, and I think that we can definitely duplicate that if we try. Guys, if you are interested in signing up for the Kansas Kayak Anglers, if you have been a member of the Northeast, the Southeast, the Flint Hills, or the Air Capital Kayak Anglers, make sure you go over to Facebook and join that Kansas Kayak Angler group. We will be doing memberships and stuff here pretty soon, and getting all that stuff kicked off for next year in doing it in a really big way. So definitely appreciate you guys. We've got a great recommendation here. Missouri versus Kansas, end of end of your event, I'm thinking like a Missouri versus Kansas event. That would be pretty sweet. I'm not really sure if that's what CBG was suggesting there, but maybe we hit up Josh Booth and see if we can make it happen. Shout out to Organic. We saw him out at the strip pits this year. And shout out to Richie. Richie, we had him on the show. His podcast did very well. If you guys are interested in seeing a podcast with a swim bait expert, Richie is your guy. So go back, check that out. Like I said, we've done 9 weeks back to back to back. We'll be back next week. I guarantee it. We will find somebody to talk to. And I'm really thinking, you guys let me know because I haven't got any recommendations yet. But you guys let me know who you want to have on the show next week. But I'm thinking that maybe we get the Kansas Kayak Anglers Club presidents on the show. Not sure if we'll be able to make that happen, get everybody all in or not. But I'm liking that one because I think we really need to get some people interested and get some people involved in that series. So would love to see each of the force clubs represented heavily at each event. So guys, let me know, what's your suggestion? Who do you want to see on the show next week? It'll be right here, Wednesday, 8 p.m. You already know the drill. Hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.